Hello. Sorry, I'm laughing. I've spent so many days this week testing OBS, obviously StreamYard, and so many filters. Oh dear. And when it comes to me actually doing this, they've all gone wrong. They've all gone. We call it Pete Tong in England. They've all gone wrong. They've gone Pete Tong. So here I am. It's hot in England, which is nice. So there's lots of nice things happening at the moment, which is good. But wow, is there some news coming out? So tonight we are going to look at some fascinating stuff that has come out that, do you know, I made various videos sharing it, and the reaction is but in the comments, as many comments I've got that are like, wow, this is brilliant, thank you. I've got the same amount of comments that are saying, you're having a laugh, which means I don't believe you. Surely not. This can't be right. The thing is, it was only through a FOIA on NASA that this huge amount of NASA data on the movement of orbs was actually accessed. And via that access, several scientists got together who were already maybe plasma physicists or plasma biologists, but they were specialists looking at plasma for a long time. And they probably, like us, thought, we can't have all those things flying around, especially in New Jersey in November, and the whole of the United States intel military government not know anything about it. Somebody must know about it. So they pulled a FOIA and they got data going back. These are NASA missions going all the way back to 1991. There are pages and pages of it. Of the documents I'm going to be looking at a little bit, one of them is 48 pages, and about 15 of those pages are effectively like screenshots of 10 pages all crushed together in a big collage of orbs moving in different directions, different types of orbs, just colossal amount of information. Now, I'm only one person, and much as I have ChatGPT-4 and Grok and DeepSeek and DeepStream and all these other AIs to sort of help me out a bit, there's only so much one little English lady can do. So for all those people shouting at me saying, "Where's the data?" I'm trying my best, okay? Um, and I put screenshots on, and most scientific documents have a DOI type code. This is a number that is allowing access. It's like an open source code that allows you to get these documents, okay? And the majority of them, you can just download them yourself as PDFs. It's quite easy. It's not difficult. So I suggest you do that. But I'm going to go through some of them. And if I can find the PowerPoint presentation that I put together earlier, we'll have that too. But we're going to start with a bit of background, which are a couple of the videos that give you the background to the discovery. Okay? Okay, you're going to bear with me for this? And I don't know which channel you're on. I can see a couple of comments coming in. If I put my glasses on, I can see a little better. Awesome. That's a good comment. We like that. Thank you. From Estevan. Estevan, you are awesome too. Thank you for being here. We should be live on YouTube, Rumble, and X, and maybe TikTok a little bit later. Not sure about that. Right. Okay. So if you missed this, we are going to go to a sort of intro of the big stuff. Move a muscle. You're going to love this, guys. To anyone in the UFO community who's been frustrated, here's the news we've all been waiting for, now confirmed, that many of us knew in the UFO community or the scientific community. Plasma is alive. It is sentient. It is intelligent. It is capable of communication. For the first time, peer-reviewed data, NASA mission footage and leading edge physics all coming together have pointed to a stunning conclusion. Plasma, the fourth state of matter, is a form of non biological life which observes, reacts, and makes decision. It is no longer science fiction, it is now science fact. It is a life form found in the thermosphere over 200 miles above Earth. It has been filmed by 10 different NASA missions, STS-48, STS-123. These plasma entities are not just lights in the sky. They change direction instantly. They accelerate, they hover, they group, they stalk, and they interact as we know. They've been observed engaging in what scientists now describe as hunter predatory behavior, following targeting and even colliding with one another in coordinated energy exchanges. And they are not alone. These intelligent plasmas are drawn to other electromagnetic activity and life, like power stations, satellites, thunderstorms. They've even been seen hovering near nuclear sites. Well, we know that. We've been saying it. They've been seen over Japan, Norway, the United States, the United Kingdom. And according to even the most stuffy of researchers, like Dr. R. Joseph and colleagues, plasma can form complex structures, even double-layered membranes similar to cells. These dusty plasmas, as they're called, can replicate, grow, store energy, all the hallmarks of what we call life. In fact, their simulations suggest that within the plasma's nucleus, helix-like structures, possibly resembling RNA, can form, think about that, life and carbon-based, but energy-based plasmas may even be able to self-organize like a little village, like a community. They may already be communicating. Some physicists say they behave like little neural networks capable of learning and memory-like activity. And here's the kicker. UAPs or UFOs, those fast-moving orbs in the skies, the lights tracked by Navy pilots and visible on radar. Many match the behavior and appearance of these plasmas exactly. You don't say. In 2006, the British Ministry of Defence concluded that many UAPs are buoyant, electrically charged magnetic phenomena, a direct match for these lifelike plasma entities. This is not a fringe theory anymore. This is now peer-reviewed, government-backed physics, verified reality. The world is catching up with what the UFO community have long been screaming about. We are not alone. But the life we've been looking for might not be piloting metallic crafts. It might be swimming through the upper atmosphere, thinking, watching, learning, communicating. Plasma is not just a state of matter. It may be the next recognized domain of life on Earth and beyond. And it's been there all the time. And we tried screaming at them. But plasma is there. We have non-human life, acknowledged, sentient, in our skies. And the reason we all see it at night is because it's there during the day as well. We just don't have the eyes and the light frequency to be able to see it. If you're watching this during the day, it's probably up there right above your head now, getting excited because it can feel your energy and electricity. Give it a kiss from me. Wow. Oh, she's a bit full on, isn't she? So, yeah. Wow, did you get that? Now, the thing is, there are several papers that have come out about plasma, uh, and thoroughly fascinated with the big question, is it sentient? Is it conscious? Is it a life form? Now, through, many years, that has been the big question. So what has changed and knocked it into the category of yes, it is? And how sure can we be? Well, the NASA study that we're going to look at a bit really does add weight, because no matter how many scientists write how many papers and how many YouTube videos have experts that are going to tell you this, science is always subjective. There's always going to be opinions. And it's not like you can pop two things in a test tube and it's going to turn a different color. It's not going to be that simple. There's a lot more to it. But there are an awful lot of things that have changed in recent months, particularly. I mean, I don't know where you live in the world, but I'm in the UK, and November the 20th, from memory, there are three American military, I'm not going to say RAF, three American military bases towards the east part of the UK that are looking after the American nuclear assets for the first time on British soil. Now, when we started to see these unusual UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, in the sky, it was the UK that started to see this build up, this grouping, actually before they got big in the US. And it was directly over those bases where those American assets were being looked after. And from that step, the next step was that the British Army were themselves doing some really big training, testing exercises, not just on unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, as many of us referred to them, but on the defensive military technology against them. Bearing in mind, here in the UK, we're not that far from our friends in Europe, and that includes, the Ukraine, and a big war that has been going on for, several years now, where it's quite clear the role of the UAV is a big one. So, deterrence, as they're called in a military technology class, deterrent technology to bring down drones is incredibly important. And the British Army are particularly advanced. We're doing well. I mean, we've got American versions of all the US military contractors. So we've got a Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman here. We've got UK divisions of them that work with our military. And I believe it was through that kind of connection that some of the advanced technology that hadn't even been used in the United States started to be tested and used in the UK in November last year on masses or swarms of drones. So when we started to see quite a few drones in the sky in November over the military bases, there was also an ongoing test, completely coincidentally, we are told, where hundreds of drones were deliberately sent up into the sky in the UK, right over the other side of the country, the west of the UK, in fact, Wales, which is very west in the UK. And there were massive exercises going on with deterrent technology to attack swarms of drones and bring them down. So we had this thing whereby it started in the UK that drones were in the sky, but the excuse in the UK, when people in Britain started going, oh, hang on, what's all these things going on? The excuse in Britain was, oh, well, the British Army are testing all these deterrents. So of course we sort of fell for that at the time. We didn't, have much to, question it really. But it was shortly after that, and whether it was coincidental or not, that the American president at the time, Joe Biden, stood up and said, I'm sending these Storm Shadow longer range missiles over to the Ukraine so they can go and fight with Russia. And I think it was even that day, because the following day, I believe I'm right in saying, a Storm Shadow missile was indeed sent by the Ukraine and hit Russia. And then, whoosh, I say all hell let loose. Obviously, all hell did let loose because it's horrible what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. But what happened is suddenly the east coast of the United States, over several military bases that are all up that top end near New Jersey, suddenly had skies filled of drones. And in the UK, more drones appeared. And then we had weird things happening at Manchester Airport in the UK, where this blue spherical object started bouncing around in front of a 747. And it all got a bit crazy. And so throughout November and then into December, we had the CIA, the FBI, the I was going to say the home stream guards. I'm sorry, the American terminology for the police and things. We had all these different American military, police, government, all these divisions going, oh, we've no idea what they are. Oh, they're not going to hurt us though. Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, they'll come down soon. Yeah, there's no problem. And then, there was even some sort of Congress meetings where some of the senators were getting very worried. One senator said he'd come out of his house and there was one right above his head and he was panicking. And some people were saying, let's shut down the airspace. Let's do something about this. So it all got quite dramatic. And of course, every Hobby Lobby fan, everybody that had, $300 was going out and buying these things and sending them up to go and have a look and find out what they were. And nobody knew. And so all this thing, obviously, sorry, I've got horrible hay fever, obviously accelerated this whole interest in these things in the skies. Now, I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I was looking at them and thinking, well, there's about 10 different types I can see. Some of them are doing this and some of them are doing that. Some of them have definitely got helicopter things on. Some were making noise, some were silent. Some seemed to be emitting something. Some were red, some were green, some were white. There was a whole load of them. And it just did not seem feasible that nobody knew anything about them. And clearly that accelerated the interest in what NASA was doing, didn't it? By a long way, by a huge way. So we are going to get into, let me see if I can do this. Oh, it's challenging me. Oh, that's not the right one. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to add something. Ah, there we go. Wow, it works. Okay, so what we've got here is a presentation that I did completely on my own. No, I didn't actually. I did get a little bit of AI to help me with it. It's astounding what it can do. We're going to run through some of these slides that are taken from several scientific papers that I have, including the NASA paper. But I also have alongside me this, which is a video of various things happening in the skies and probably some of my home photos by mistake by the looks of it. Anyway, it's screen dumps of the things that were happening in November and December and all the drama that was going on and everybody went all mad. And I'm going to show you in images, not actually in videos, some of the background and some of the more refined detail to what is happening and why we are now looking at the possibility of orbs being not only alive, not only sentient, but
I don't know
intelligent,
about you, but I think a lot of
organizing
us are
and
getting tired of the whole
purposeful.
drones thing. It's a complete farce what the US
Have
government,
a little listen to
military, White
this.
House have told us. And I, for one, am now looking at the science of what is happening in plasma propelled vehicles, as they're called. So I thought I'd put together a little video from some of the best that are available. And I also discovered a huge amount of money has gone into exactly this type of thing. You guessed it, from the US Department of Defense. Now, these could be very long videos indeed, so I've taken the most important excerpts, but I've also given you a screen grab at the end of where I've taken them from, so you can watch them at length, and obviously you can also adjust the timing with which you watch them. I hope this will give you more of an insight into how some of the drones, as they are called, are moving around, changing shape, and potentially where they come from.
One thing all these craft have in common is that they all use some form of field drive technology. This page outlines the evolutionary steps we will take in researching and developing field drive technologies, starting with the electrodynamic drone and MHD aerospace craft, interplanetary craft, and ultimately, starships. What is MHD propulsion? MHD propulsion is a form of propulsion that utilizes electromagnetic forces to move fluids, such as ionized air, plasmas, seawater, etc., without the need for propellers or any other kind of airfoil. In fact, without the need for any moving parts whatsoever. Specifically, the working principle of MHD propulsion involves the acceleration of an electrically conductive fluid by the Lorentz force, which is the repulsive magnetic force appearing wherever an electric current is perpendicular to a magnetic field. What typically happens in a conversation involving somebody explaining what MHD propulsion is, one begins to confuse MHD propulsion with ion wind propulsion. And if one does not confuse these two categories of propulsion with one another, one at least is immediately thinking and or mentioning ion wind propulsion within the same conversation. So in a video like this, it is important to explain the difference between ion wind propulsion and MHD propulsion before we go any further. Ion wind propulsion, or more generally electrohydrodynamic propulsion, which can also be called EHD propulsion, works by accelerating ionized air or another electrically conductive fluid, utilizing only electric fields instead of magnetic fields. Speaking generally, EHD, ion wind propulsion, has a lower thrust given the same volume compared to MHD propulsion. In technical jargon, this is called power density. While there is a distinct difference between EHD propulsion and MHD propulsion, in many cases the two can overlap and may even be used together in the same vehicle. This explanation can be even more easily understood if one were to stop and consider the meaning of the term ion wind. Ion wind, or as it is sometimes called electric wind, is produced when an intense electric field causes a breakdown of air, forming a cloud of like-charged ions or electrons depending on the polarity of the field. The ions' electrons are repelled by the electric field and each other, expanding outwards or moving towards an electric field of opposite polarity. In the process, the ions or electrons collide with neutral air molecules, creating a wind away from the initial electric field, either outward or toward another electric field of the opposite polarity. There is one more thing we need to explain in order that there is no confusion or misunderstanding. Electrohydrodynamics, EHD, is not the same as electrodynamics. The field of electrodynamics includes both EHD and MHD, so all forms of EHD propulsion and MHD propulsion are also electrodynamic propulsion. But not all forms of electrodynamic propulsion are necessarily EHD or MHD. Electrodynamic propulsion is a useful term to distinguish MHD in a conductive physical fluid from MHD type propulsion in a non-physical medium, such as the quantum vacuum. Now let's move on to the next section of this video. MHD propulsion fundamentals. The Lorentz force is the repulsive force between magnets, or more specifically, it is a force that arises when electric current is at a right angle to a magnetic field. This occurs even for permanent magnets such as ordinary fridge magnets. In this case, the currents involved are created by the magnets themselves as opposed to being created separately, as we will discuss with regards to MHD propulsion. These currents are also generally quite weak. It is worth noting briefly that the repulsive force you feel when trying to push a pair of magnets together is in fact the Lorentz force. A fluid can be accelerated, decelerated, or its pressure increased or decreased via the Lorentz force. In order for the Lorentz force to act on a fluid, the fluid must either be conductive already or made conductive in the moment, such as by ionization or the addition of electrolytes. In the case of MHD propulsion, oppositely charged electrodes are used to create the needed electric current through the fluid. A magnetic field is then passed at a right angle to it, giving rise to the Lorentz force, accelerating or decelerating the fluid. If the fluid is already moving, a Lorentz force can be used to either accelerate the fluid further and thereby decrease its pressure, or to decelerate the fluid and so increase its pressure. Now remember, electric and magnetic fields can only act on a conductive medium. Therefore, to operate in an atmosphere, an MHD propelled vehicle must first ionize the air. This can be done in one of several ways, but one of the most efficient methods is known as high-frequency pulse discharge, or HF pulse discharge for short. This is where an alternating current at radio to microwave frequency or higher produces electromagnetic radiation in fields that ionizes air or other gases very efficiently. The ionized air then forms a conductive sheath just off of the surface, which absorbs all or most of the emitted radiation. Once the air is ionized, it can be moved via electromagnetic forces such as the Lorentz force or via an ion wind effect. This is where EHD propulsion.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because it is going to go into an awful lot of detail. But the point I wanted to make, which is very relevant, is that a huge amount of those drones that we witnessed in November, December, and that we still see today are advanced technology, military drones made by various military contractors. There was something like 11.8 billion spent by the United States, signed off in November, December of 2024. Over 400 US military contractors were given contracts in 2024 by the US, by different parts of the US military and government, to create in a competitive way the most advanced unmanned aerial vehicles ever. And some of them deliberately were created to be deceptively like UFOs or orbs. You will be amazed. You'll be amazed. I mean, I don't even know the extent to which it can go, but you can use optical illusions. The propulsion mechanism, we learnt a little bit there about hydromechanics, all those sorts of things. Some of those drones that are in the sky are propelled or levitate or fly by a laser coming from a satellite above. I know that sounds crazy. There are so many different clever ways of these various UAVs operating. And in fact, plasma propulsion, which you think might be contained only to rockets and rocket fuel, is actually quite a big part of, a lot of current technologies going on. equally plasma sheathing. So you can have a mechanical UAV underneath and a plasma sheathing over it deliberately to make it less able to be picked up by radar, to look more deceptive, to be able to refract different colors and ionization of air. You have to recognize that as these things are flying around, we're actually seeing them pretty low, aren't we? But as you go up, the temperature, the thermals of the air change, the density of the air changes, the ionization, you heard that in the video, the ionization of the air is critical. That changes. And that is also a key part of propulsion in terms of changing ionization, creating vacuums, effectively creating a vacuum in front of the craft and then sucking your craft into it. Oh, I'm not going to be able to describe it very well. But the point is, nobody knows whether or not in November, December, whether or not these intelligent orbs picked up the huge amount of electromagnetic activity, starting with the nuclear assets in the UK that were, being moved for the first time ever onto UK soil. And that's why some of these orbs went over to the UK. And maybe the military saw some of these orbs, knew what they were, but it's a military secret. So they thought, oh, we've got to deflect from this. Let's send up some of our mechanical ones to confuse the picture. I mean, who knows? Did the ones that were over New Jersey, we know that there were 400 odd military contractors that have been told to fly their drones over military bases in the US, and particularly in November, December. So we know that the majority of what we saw over New Jersey and Oregon and lots of different parts of the United States were military contractor fancy drones, because we've seen the contracts. I saw the contracts. I actually wrote the story on the contracts on my profile if you want to see it. But did the orbs arrive first? And did all the American military and the British Army send their proper manufactured ones up to confuse the matter? Do we know? That's not the it's not the subject of today's talk, but it's intriguing, isn't it? So this piece of additional slide, plasma orb mobility versus military technologies, is here because it's a bloody good argument. How do we tell these things apart? And how do we know that the orbs that we're seeing bouncing around at the moment are the plasma, sentient, intelligent life form orbs, or some very clever advanced technology? Well, this is just a little list to help you work it out. Put it on your fridge with a fridge magnet, and then when you see these things flying around, you could tick it off as to what it does. So, very simply, we've got things like plasma orb mobility. Well, we know they move at hypersonic speeds. So, I don't know, Mach 4, Mach 6, Mach 8. Wow, you've seen them when they move, but they are able to turn on a shoe pin. They can turn 90-degree angles really, really quick. And I'm not so sure that the military technology ones would be able to. Sorry, I thought you could still hear me if I was there. I'm really sorry. Thank you for letting me know. I forgot to put my glasses on, aren't I? I thought you could hear me then. I'm really sorry. So I was just talking through the slide. Okay, the differences. Thumbs up. Thank you for the help. So you can see the differences on that list, but most importantly, these rapid turns at high speeds, also going in and out of water, even coming out of the sea. that sort of stuff. That's what, importantly, is one of the differences. Now, I'm going to have to work out how to, yeah, how to commentate without me going off. But you'll just have to stick with me. I'll just have to stay here. Okay, right. So let's get on to the root of the matter here, which is the presentation that we're going to go through. Now, I am going to go through these slides not rapidly, but at a fairly prompt, because I've already made a sort of script. No, I didn't do it on my own. I did get AI to help, but I am going to have a look at it. So as we go through, we are starting with plasma life, a new form of sentience discovered in Earth's thermosphere. Ooh, I had a good diagram here. Now, I don't know whether I've still got it. Actually, you guys are also switched on. You probably don't need it. But in terms of the layers of the ionosphere, let me just see if I've got it. I was going to explain thermosphere. So the ionosphere has got several layers within it, and they all have names. You've got stratosphere, thermosphere. I've probably explained most of it now, but it is important to know at what level these things are flying so that you can work out. Here we go. Here we go. I've got it. I've got it. I've got it, guys. Don't panic. Says the beginner on StreamYard. Right. There we go. There we go. Right. So you can see from that diagram the different layers from Earth. We've got troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and got exosphere. That's it. Right. So as each of these go up, we have different things that can fly at different levels, and that includes our own jets. It includes birds, everything. Now, the important thing is that these orbs have been here for a long, long time. In fact, we're not going to go into it at the moment, but they predate us. I believe that from everything I've seen and read. They predate us. They predate humans. But we haven't seen much of them because they've been incredibly high. They've been in a higher layer of the ionosphere. And I also think that it may be that they came further down in recent months, towards the end of 2024. I don't want to get too conspiracy theorist, but I think the ionosphere has taken a lot of damage from the testing of electromagnetic weapons, particularly railgun electromagnetic weapons. There are quite a lot of weapons, Japanese in particular, that were testing their electromagnetic weapons when Spain and Southern Europe lost its power. And they go up to 320 kilometers, which is quite far up into this. Does it say kilometers? Gosh, I'm blind. Anyway, so I'm kind of on the theory. I wonder whether or not, does anybody, I mean, what do you think? I think that these were flying much higher, these orbs, and they came lower because they need a certain ionization of air. They need a certain temperature, they need a certain air density. And if we're firing electromagnetic beams up into parts of the ionosphere, they're probably not going to like that too much. So I wonder whether they've dropped down recently. That's one of my theories. Yeah. So we start off. We've got the NASA missions from 1991 to 1996, which is one load of data. And they're actually part of the Institute of Physics document, the NASA stuff. And then there's two or three other documents, primary research we've got here, Joseph S. Al, Journal of Modern Physics. And there's quite a few of these. If you actually search on it, go into the Internet Archive or go into the CIA library or go into the British Military Archive, where I found quite a few. So there's quite a lot of these documents that you can find about plasma. But this is the big discovery. So the space shuttles, and I mean, bearing in mind, we only got this through a FOIA request. The space shuttles filmed unexplained luminous orbs in the thermosphere. And they were going to keep them a secret. In fact, they were still on this ruse of, oh, they must be reflections or something. I don't know what they were saying, but they tried to keep them quiet. But they weren't just noted on one mission, they were noted on several. This is where I can start to read out what I had made notes on earlier. Give me a thumbs up if you can't hear me. Okay, so NASA did not just do one mission. They didn't film them once. They didn't film them twice. They filmed them in 10 separate missions. These glowing orbs dancing at 200 miles above Earth. At first, they were just anomalies. Then they swarmed satellites. They dove into thunderstorms. They tracked the space shuttle and hovered outside the windows. NASA called them reflections, but astronauts disagreed on the record. And now, peer-reviewed scientists have confirmed it. They are plasma-based life forms, not made of flesh. No DNA, although we did find double helix RNA type structures, which are interesting. No spacecraft, no wings, alive. They move at hypersonic speeds without any mechanical signs of anything we would look for traditional propulsion. They stop instantly on a pinhead. They can just stop and hover. They can change direction at 90 degrees, almost instantly in front of our eyes. They vanish into storms. They reappear above the clouds. They swarm, cluster, and yes, they hunt. I know, it gets fascinating. One plasma targets another, intercepts, collides, leaves a glowing trail of dust. Dust that we will find out that contains microbiomes, like the original microbiomes that first created the first bacteria, the first fungus, the first virus. Remember I said they predated humans? So they leave behind a dust. We talk about dusty plasma. We'll come on to that. One plasma targets another. Remember that bit. They float or they can graze. Oh, I love this bit. I've even had a cartoon made. So, NASA filmed them at 200 miles altitude in the thermosphere. Sharp directional shifts observed on infrared camera footage. They were filmed diving into and emerging from thunderstorms. And as I said, the footage only came via a foyer. So their behaviors are mimicking life. They're scurrying around, they're hovering, they're hunting, they're tracking. They are not just, like balloons that have been helium balloons bouncing around. They have directional changes up to 180 degrees. They swarm, they interact, they leave behind dust trails, and there are groups of them. I love this bit. This is where my cartoons come in. Look at those. I got my crayons out. Actually, no, I had a bit of help from AI. But here we go. We have the hunters, the grazers, the floaters, and the thunderstorm divers. Whoosh! So, 4 different types, 4 different physical presentations. I don't know if you remember it, but in November, when everybody was looking up in the sky and everybody was saying, oh, no, they're advanced technology, we were all looking to see whether we could see, copters and whether or not they made noises and all this stuff. But remember, we had green ones and red ones, and everyone was going, oh, it's green and red. It's the port and starport. It's the tips of an aeroplane, and all this type of thing. Well, here we go. We had floaters. It sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? Right, so let's go through these. So we have a floater, which is literally doing what it says. The grazers are interesting. The grazers munching up electromagnetic energy. They are seeking the electromagnetics. It makes me think they are the ones that are going off towards military bases, sniffing out nice bits of uranium. Because radiation, they're looking for electromagnetics, radiated air, all those types of things. Hunters, fast, aggressive, predatory. Grazers, slow, passive, energy absorbing. And the floaters are dreamlike. Which one would you be? Don't tell us Scientology and the ancient Theton micro alien sci fi who is accidentally in the zone. I like that. Who's that from? Brut Leather. I've got some people with cool names watching. This is good. I've got horrible hay fever. I need a tissue. Oh dear. Sorry, guys. Ugh. I'm beginning to think I'm allergic to every pollen that's around. I'm blaming it on Schumann resonances at the moment. So, yeah, we've got all these. We've got all these different ones. This isn't sci-fi, it's data from NASA, confirmed by physicists like Ron Joseph Armstrong and Wadowski in the Journal of Modern Physics. Now, that is one of the best papers. The Journal of Modern Physics paper, 2024-25. It's funny that only two out of four of these papers were published in November of 24 and January of 25, when all the things appeared. That's a bit strange, isn't it? Coincidental, I'm sure. I'm sure not. And then we have to bring in the Brits, because us Brits are a bit canny, and apparently we were involved in all this cover-up. Surprise, surprise. The UK Ministry of Defence agrees that the declassified report says UAPs are likely buoyant electrically charged plasma. Nobel Prize winner Hans Alfres describes plasma as self-organizing, cell-like. Now, the cell-like thing comes from the fact that some of them are sort of double-skinned, like a cell membrane. I think that's interesting. So it's almost like two lots of membrane to get into, double-skinned. And those, I think, are the divers, the thunderstorm divers from memory. Don't quote me on that. So this Nobel Prize winner, Hans Alfson, describes them as self-organizing, cell-like, and sentient. They don't burn up. So, you think when things go through the atmosphere and the ionosphere and, you've watched sci-fi, all these rockets going through, we're going to burn up. They've got special panels on to make sure they don't burn up. So, orbs may look flimsy, they may be translucent, they may look like cotton wool, but they don't burn up. They don't need ordinary air, as in oxygen, I presume this means. They're drawn to satellites, radar, nuclear plants, and they feed on energy. And very importantly, they make love. Now, actually, it says they replicate, but making love is a nicer thing to say. So we've got replicating, love making bundles of fun up in the air. They also form helical chains in dust. Now, that gets into the complex stuff I'm not going to go into, but we are talking neural. Neural, as in neurology, as in thinking, as in cognizant, neural networks, and RNA. Yeah, just like an RNA virus. Anyone seen any of those recently? Okay, so these are, well, actually, it says here dusty plasma from helical structures twisting into patterns resembling RNA, the precursor to DNA. These structures can replicate, respond to stimuli, and in some cases self-organize into layers, forming complex, double-walled membranes. This is energy-based intelligence. The same physicist, whose name I can't pronounce, Hannes Alfven, described these as electromagnetic double layers as cellular dynamic, capable of forming electromagnetic nerve nets across space. And in 2024, Ron Joseph, that's Ron spelt Rhawn, proposed that these plasma filaments in Earth's thermosphere act like a global nervous system, a kind of ancient consciousness field. Oh, that's going to send me down a rabbit hole, stretching across the planet. They may not be thinking in words or logic, but they react, replicate, and seek energy, just like life. Oh, are you getting excited yet? I hope you are. So, yes, a list of traits here. They're dusty, RNA, sentient, organized, like a bit of nuclear electromagnetic energy. They seek it out. Oh, a whole list of what NASA ignored. Write this one down, guys. Yeah, I saw a lot of these references when I was looking through the papers. NASA kept telling people in the same way that the British military were telling people that they were seeing reflections. Oh, look at that thing in the sky. It's a reflection of what? What else is in the sky that can be reflected? It just sounds dumb. Ah, there he is. There's the name of Joseph. Proposed plasma can form cellular sentient structures in space. Right, now here's consciousness hypotheses. Wow, this is a minefield. Now, they may not be thinking in words or logic, but the important, and I'm reading from some of the scientific clips from these papers here. They may not be thinking in words or logic, but they react, replicate, seek energy, communicate with each other, organize. So, for example, if they are running low on energy, they will send off the hunter gatherers to go and get more energy. It's like stopping in a fuel station. Oh, we need some more diesel. Can you just pull in? Oh, and get me a Snickers bar while you're there. So they've got people. Well, people, they're a community. They're sending the people off with the biggest aptitude to go and hunt and gather to go off and get energy for them. Energy-based intelligence. They may not be thinking in words or logic, but they react, replicate, seek energy, just like life. And the scientist Joseph calls it a virtual nervous system spanning the thermosphere, a new intelligence woven into Earth's upper atmosphere. This is not aliens visiting us. They're already here. The funny thing is, we all go crazy at night when we see them in the sky. They're here during the day. It's not like they just pop out at night. They don't say, come on, we're going for a beer. Let's pop out and scare a few people. They're here during the day. We just can't see them because our eyes can only see certain light frequencies. So we can't see them during the day. This is a new form of life living amongst us. It's non-common, it's non-human, it's not even biological, and yet they move with intention. They react to us. Did you see the stories, actually? I think it was in the States, about a woman who was talking to one of the orbs about God, or she was saying something like, I love Jesus Christ. Do you love Jesus Christ? And the orb was coming towards her. This is, allegedly, but I did see that, and the orb seemed to be bouncing and glowing. It was on video. What can we trust on video? But in all honesty, this is kind of making sense. There's certain people, certain houses, they seem to keep going back to or fly over. Maybe that senator, where there was one over the door, maybe that senator was calling them in effectively without him knowing. They move with intention. They might even be watching us. So now the question is not are we alone, but were we ever alone? And were they here before us? Come on, guys, what do you think? I mean, this is opening so many other rabbit holes, isn't it? Why it matters. I think of 100 reasons. This may be the first confirmed non-carbon sentient life. It exists in Earth's upper atmosphere, not in deep space. It explains the Foo Fighters. Ooh, I love the music, but not the Foo Fighters you mean. The Foo Fighters were giant, amber, red-coloured orbs spotted by the pilots in the Second World War, 1939 to 1941, 43, about that time, where loads and loads of them reported these big red orbs. And guess what? They came back in November 2024 over Oregon. Go to my profile. I'm sorry, I'm rattling on too much. But you can see loads of stuff about the Foo Fighters on my profile. So it's not fringe theory, it's peer-reviewed. Plasma entities exhibit movement patterns. Okay, that's the last slide. That's it. Oh, right. Now, for those that weren't here, I'm just going to give you a little refresher while I go and get a drink, and then I'm going to come back and summarize it. Okay.
Don't move a muscle. You're going to love this, guys. To anyone in the UFO community who's been frustrated, here's the news we've all been waiting for, now confirmed, that many of us knew in the UFO community or the scientific community. Plasma is alive. It is sentient. It is intelligent. It is capable of communication. For the first time, peer-reviewed data, NASA mission footage, and leading-edge physics all coming together have pointed to a stunning conclusion. Plasma, the fourth state of matter, is a form of non-biological life which observes, reacts, and makes decision. It is no longer science fiction. It is now science fact. It is a life form found in the thermosphere over 200 miles above Earth. It has been filmed by 10 different NASA missions, STS-48, STS-123. These plasma entities are not just lights in the sky. They change direction instantly. They accelerate, they hover, they group, they stalk, and they interact as we know. They've been observed engaging in what scientists now describe as hunter predatory behavior, following targeting and even colliding with one another in coordinated energy exchanges. And they are not alone. These intelligent plasmas are drawn to other electromagnetic activity and life, like power stations, satellites, thunderstorms. They've even been seen hovering near nuclear sites. Well, we know that. We've been saying it. They've been seen over Japan, Norway, the United States, the United Kingdom. And according to even the most stuffy of researchers, like Dr. R. Joseph and colleagues, plasma can form complex structures, even double-layered membranes similar to cells. These dusty plasmas, as they're called, can replicate, grow, store energy, all the hallmarks of what we call life. In fact, their simulations suggest that within the plasma's nucleus, helix-like structures, possibly resembling RNA, can form, think about that, life, and carbon-based, but energy-based plasmas may even be able to self-organize like a little village, like a community. They may already be communicating. Some physicists say they behave like little neural networks capable of learning and memory-like activity. And here's the kicker. UAPs, or UFOs, those fast-moving orbs in the skies, the lights tracked by Navy pilots and visible on radar. Many match the behavior and appearance of these plasmas exactly. You don't say. In 2006, the British Ministry of Defence concluded that many UAPs are buoyant, electrically charged magnetic phenomena, a direct match for these lifelike plasma entities. This is not a fringe theory anymore. This is now peer-reviewed, government-backed physics, verified reality. The world is catching up with what the UFO community have long been screaming about. We are not alone. But the life we've been looking for might not be piloting metallic crafts. It might be swimming through the upper atmosphere, thinking, watching, learning, communicating. Plasma is not just a state of matter. It may be the next recognized domain of life on Earth and beyond. And it's been there all the time. And we tried screaming at them. But plasma is there. We have non-human life, acknowledged, sentient, in our skies. And the reason we all see it at night is because it's there during the day as well. We just don't have the eyes and the light frequency to be able to see it. If you're watching this during the day, it's probably up there right above your head now, getting excited because it can feel your energy and electricity.
Go and have a look.
Give it a kiss from me.
Yes, okay, I've just had a sneezing fit, but I feel so much better afterwards. I think there was a whole load of orbs up there. Oh, you don't want to know that, do you? You really don't want to know that. So the thing is, there are so many questions now about whether or not these sentient life forms have always been on Earth from as far back as we know. But if they were, they weren't noticed, presumably, by all the ancient civilizations, because I don't remember any hieroglyphics or passages in scripture, particularly about orbs. There are lots of references all the way through the Bible, the Quran, through scriptures and hieroglyphics that suggest to me UFOs massively. Oh, massively. But do you know the first thing I questioned after going through a lot of these documents and seeing all these NASA photos, which I'm going to show you some of them in a minute? I questioned whether or not there are any hard UFOs, whether there have ever been flying saucers, proper metal spinning saucers or big triangles or anything. If this is, well, it is an alien life form because it's not human, so technically we call it alien. But if this is a UFO and an alien effectively because it is an integrated being within a flying thing, well, something that moves in multiple dimensions. And that's the other thing. It's like the Foo Fighters. Did the Foo Fighters that were there at the end of the Second World War, were they the same ones that came back and visited us in November? Did they come through a time warp or a similar parallel universe? Do we really have aliens that are little blue and grey men or tall grey men or whatever that jump into hardware metallic saucers and fly around? Or are these the aliens? Now, I know we can't answer any of that, but that's the sort of thing that particularly hit me when I started looking at this. It was just one of those, I've got to rethink my whole everything, you know? Now, let me just have a look at a couple of these comments because we've got some nice comments coming in. Don't tell us Scientology and the ancient Thetan micro aliens. Oh, yes, that was a good one. Right. Brute Laser. Energy has many rabbit holes. Gosh, I've been down quite a few. One AI rabbit hole is magnetism, still to be explored. Let's bring this up actually so you can all see it. So, this is Bruteza. Thank you for your comment. Energy has many rabbit holes. One AI rabbit hole is magnetism, still to be explored. This is good stuff. Do the after use of grok? Oh, you're talking about grok. Are you on X by any chance? So grok tells me a Boy Scout compass works correctly out to approximately 60,000 kilometers from Earth. That's not very far, is it? I mean, how do the 737s know where they're flying? Only joking. The science says it's from the rotating lava beneath us, but that far. Science has many mysteries. Science does indeed have many mysteries. Thank you for that. That's good. Do bring in any more comments if you have them. That's what it did. I mean, the whole of this has opened up massive rabbit holes. But the one paper in particular, the physics paper with all these images, which I'm just going to pull up for you if I can find them, if you bear with me, sing along, and do fire on any questions. But the thing is, there's so much here that it's the sort of thing where you really want to go away and have a good look at it, because it's not the sort of thing that you could take on board overnight. So these are the sorts of things that there's so many of them. Let me just show you one of them.
And wind propulsion and MHD
It's not the right one. Hang on. There we go. Right. So this is one of the images from this document that is 48 pages long. And this is just looking at different shapes, cylindrical shapes, cigar shapes, wavy shapes. But the thing is, they are all morphologic. Plasma is a state of matter that is deliberately volatile. The component parts of plasma are moving faster than anything else we know. We've got solids, we've got gas, we've got liquids. Everything in those, all the molecules and particles in those are moving slower than what does in plasma. So plasma is frenetic by design, and it's morphological. So when we see the orbs in the sky, and one minute they look spherical, or sometimes they're oval or egg-shaped, and the next minute they're pulled out to cigar shape, or some of them that I find the ones that are fascinating, that they're sort of, spherical, and then suddenly they pop out a couple of babies. We get little red ones coming out of green ones, and then you get this kind of formation dancing. I don't know if you've seen the videos of the ones that were captured that almost come out like a die as in dice. So you've got the way that the 6 blobs are on a dice, and the 4 blobs, and the organization, literally like formation dancing, or what's it called, that swimming, I can't remember the name of it, where they're all in patterns. Anyway, what I'm saying is, being morphological, they can change their shape, they are organized, they can move in patterns, they can create different colors. They which would be something to do obviously with the ionization, the different air, the thermals, the whatever. But if they're controlling the molecules within the plasma, they can pretty much do anything. Maybe not the Times crossword, but the question is, well, I say it's not the question, is it? There's loads of questions, and I'd like to really, really understand where the limits are. And I'd like to know, I mean, what do you guys think? How long have they been here? Have they been here since Earth began? There are, I forgot to tell you this, I must tell you this. Within these studies, these scientific studies, a couple of the scientists have looked at the fact, we've heard of the Big Bang, that our sentient plasma orbs created us and other organisms, because by the coming together of electromagnetic waves, we've got frequencies, we've got light waves, we've got sound waves, we've got electromagnetics, and all these things coming together, you only need something intense like a solar wind or a solar flare or some other event as such. And it'd be very easy, bearing in mind, as I said, these things have got an RNA type structure. The dusty plasmas have microbiomes, so they're already carrying organic matter of all different types. They could have been what was the initiation of the first organisms, the first live organisms that would have dropped down to Earth and maybe started in the sea and then become reptiles. And there is a page in this document, I can't find that one, where they compare. They compare the orbs to reptiles. They look at the physiology, the structure of the reptile, the inner type of the different skins and layers of the reptile down to it's the invertebrates. They look at the different structures and they compare it with the structure of the orbs. Right. I'm going to take questions and I'm going to hop off because there's too much here, and I will have to come back when it is when we know a bit more, because a lot of it is guesswork at the moment. So, any final questions before I leave you? And then I will pop off and dissolve myself in an ice cube somewhere. Okay. Oh, hi, Christy. Hi, Pitchforks. Hi, Rabbit. Sorry, we're on various different platforms here. Okay, let's just have a quick look at this again. So this is what we know. We've got military technology, very advanced. The United States paid 11.8 billion just before Christmas to over 400 military contractors to make some man-made versions of these. The big differences are they're not morphological. They can't change their shape. They can't turn at 90 degrees at a Mach 8 speed. They make noise. And generally speaking, they probably can not hover in the same place for the same amount of time because they probably need to go and refuel, I would think. Some of them do have solar panels, and there's laser propulsion, solar propulsion, a mixture of the quadricopters. There's all these different types, but there'd be some fairly obvious differences. Keep an eye on the different layers of the atmosphere, the ionosphere, and these are all changing because every day, with the movements of the sun, changes in electromagnetics, we've got these things called Schumann resonances at the moment. It's like a cavity between the Earth and the lower part of the ionosphere, where we've got these really low, heavy magnetic waves that are making us all feel a bit, and those things are changing all the time. But dig out this document, particularly, there are 7 or 8 pages of all these photographs of these things. And honestly, if you can read 48 pages before you go to bed, you're doing better than I did. Okay, right. Let me say goodbye properly. Goodbye. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you could give me some feedback or subscribe or send my dog some kibble by buying me a coffee or subscribing on TikTok or X for only about $2 a month. I mean, look at me, I'm fading away. Thank you for joining me. This is Moneypenny checking out. Orbs are alive. We are not alone. Oh, no, no, no.